Simulation Happy Hour acknowledges the land and the waters from which you are listening today. Welcome to Simulation Happy Hour. Sit back, relax, and let's talk about all things sim. Simulation Happy Hour acknowledges the land and the waters from which you are listening today. Welcome to Simulation Happy Hour. Sit back, relax, and let's talk about all things sim.
Welcome to Simulation Happy Hour. I'm Jane Frost.
I'm Kerry Reid-Searl.
I'm Jenny Bassett.
I'm Mel Barlow.
And today we're going to be talking all things Mask-Ed. So I'm going to be asking some of the questions today. So the first question I have, Kerry, is can you explain what Mask-Ed is?
Sure, Jane. So Mask-Ed is actually a simulation technique that I designed several years ago, or many years ago, whereby the informed educator, and it doesn't matter necessarily what discipline you're in, they are informed about the practice that they teach in. So they don a silicon prop and they transfer into another person, and that is a character who has a history that allows them to be the platform for learning and teaching. Now, that may sound a little bit confusing. So, in essence, I'm a nurse. My background is nursing education. So when I transfer into another character, it might be I'm a retired matron. So the bottom line is I'm able to be a conduit through my character of providing students with really valid information. Let me give you an example. So my name is Muriel Moore. I'm a retired matron. I'm working with students, and let's say it's on vital signs. So I might say, as I'm in character, hello, my dears, now listen, when you're doing the pulse, just make sure you go up the little finger thumb there and you'll find it right there, and you're listening for you're feeling for the rate, the rhythm, the regularity and the strength. Now, how do I know that? I used to be a matron, a nursing matron. So all the way through, I'm providing students tips of information. Have you washed your hands, my dear? When I was a nurse, etc. So it's like you are so insightful or aware of the content that you're actually teaching, but you're doing it in a totally different way. So always the character has a background that allows them to be in tune with the learners and is able to transfer really important information in a really friendly, warm way. How's that?
For anybody, that's fantastic. For anybody who doesn't know things about or hasn't seen Mask-Ed before, what do you mean by silicon props?
That's a really good question, Jane. So if you've ever looked at Mrs. Doubtfire, that's the movie that gave me the idea that I could be doing something differently. So I'd always worn just props when I did role play, but the students could see my face. So I decided I need to transfer or hide from that person who they see as their teacher, their assessor. So I started using masks from plays or, from theatre shops that were hard plastic. Didn't work. When I saw Mrs. Doubtfire, I thought, that is my answer. So I got in touch with the key players in Hollywood, and yes, I bought some masks online, and essentially we don these silicon props, these masks, to transfer our faces. But more than that, I wanted to be able to do body parts. So I can slip on like a wetsuit material or like a wetsuit, but it's all in silicon, and I'll have a different genital. I will have breasts. Well, I've got breasts, but I'll have breasts. I'll have a vagina, I'll have legs, etc. So the reality is these characters come to life with not just a face, but if I'm dealing with nursing students, they may need to wash me, they may need to address my pressure injuries, they could potentially even catheterize me. Yet it's not me as the person, it is the silicon props that allows me to transfer into something else. Interesting, Jane, when I was a young person and I started this, and I used to put on the silicon abdomen and the bottom parts, and I used to think, I will never look like that. I'm 63 now, and I can say I almost don't need to wear those props, but I must. I thought, how would I ever get a pendulous abdomen looking like that? And yes, we are now at that age.
So I think, Kerry, you've answered some of my next question, which was, why did you develop this technique?
Well, Jane, I had started doing a lot of role play years ago in the teaching in the laboratory, clinical laboratory space. The problem was with role play, as I said, students they didn't see this as an authentic other character. And I used to put my name to another person, I'd put a pair of glasses on, and I'd separate myself to this new character. The problem was I would find is that the students wouldn't want to touch me in terms of I am their assessor, I am their lecturer. They didn't want to encroach on my personal space. So what then happened is I started to look around for masks, as I said before, and I went to theatre shops and things like that. All I could find was those hard plastic masks. I wore those once and never would I wear them again. They had no facial movement. So then I decided, well, I need to do something more. And as I said, that's where I watched Mrs. Doubtfire, started to use the silicon props, but I needed more. And that's where I went to the other body parts to really be able to play that authentic play. So why did I do it? What led it to it? I wanted realism. I wanted vulnerability. I wanted these characters to be someone whose students would absolutely be suspended in disbelief. And that's exactly how these characters emerge. Changing voice, changing mannerisms, really doing your homework about what older persons, how they may move, or if I'm playing someone who has a level of Parkinson's disease, how do I then play those authentic roles? So it's a lot of background, not just the silicon prop, it's becoming somebody else who is genuine, whose voice is genuine, whose age is genuine, to be able to transfer informations to students in a really authentic way. Interestingly, in this technique, we never stick to scripts. We are dealing with students in the most humanistic way, where it is spontaneous in dialogue. So the KRS associated with Mask-Ed is not Kerry Reid-Searl. It is K for knowledge, the knowledge of the person who is transferring into that character that allows them to impart information to students. R is realistic, so everything that you do in mannerisms, in voice, is well rehearsed. And S is spontaneous. That dialogue is not prescripted, it is spontaneous in every human interaction. However, as the educator, I have got core objectives that I know I need to cover in that particular session. So I don't necessarily go on random conversations. It's always attuned specifically to what are my objectives for this session. At the same time, I will be grabbing teachable learning moments as I go that only come from those humanistic responses with students or with learners. Does that make sense?
It does. I'd like for you to talk a little bit, if you can, well, of course you can, but around the pedagogy and the importance of having training, because this isn't something that people can just go, after listening to this podcast, they can't just get a mask and become a character. There is more to it than that. Can you talk to that? Because I just want our readers to understand.
Jane. Yeah, so we have done research around this and several research studies around this, and it was really interesting that the findings of one of those studies identified from people who have played these roles how valuable and important that preparation is. So we run 2-day workshops to prepare people for this, and there's a lot of practice before they actually go into the classroom. The risk of people not being trained is that it can be traumatic for learners. It can be, you can create a really negative learning experience. So donning silicon props the silicon prop is merely just the transfer of the character, but the whole character is coming through with that knowledge of the person, the way they're reading their learners, the ability to react, the ability to make sure that they are vulnerable, they are kind, they are gentle. It is about not challenging learners to be walking away from that simulation where they're feeling very negative. You are dealing with incredibly high emotional, potentially high stake simulation. To be able to debrief effectively, to be able to unpack what has happened in that simulation requires someone with expertise, someone with really solid understanding of the pedagogy that sits behind it. We have seen, people have said, has this ever gone belly up? For me, no. For my people, or for the people whom I have trained in this actual technique, no. MaskEd has hit high-class news as a result of one particular institution not having any training in this experience, utilising characters, and in this situation it was with mental health, where it caused traumatic responses to learners, but also an absolute insult to persons who are experiencing mental health issues. So the bottom line is any preparation is thorough, and people who are playing these techniques really have to understand what they're doing. Just to don a mask is potentially highly problematic, can I say. So I would not encourage people just to don a silicon prop and go off and play a character. It's about understanding voice, it's about mannerisms, it's understanding the tone of which you come across, it's understanding vulnerability, it's understanding the warmth of the characters, being student friendly, etc. I could keep going on, Jane, but we don't have much time.
I've got a
Thank
question,
you so much.
Jane.
I'm going to ask Mel and Jenny if they've got any questions.
Yeah.
Before I ask if we can meet a character, which would be great for.
I have a few questions. Kerry, the first one is, can you give us an example? So you're talking about undergraduate. Is it a one-off class, or how do you integrate this into the curriculum?
Yeah, a great question, because a lot of our particularly universities, have multiple campuses. So how do we create equity across all campuses? There's two ways. One is that people are willing to be trained in the technique, and they may have a character for each of their campuses, and that way they can be doing face-to-face interactions. Alternatively, one other thing that we're doing at the organisation in which I work is not only just face-to-face, but we do a lot of work online. So the students might meet these characters through Teams, through Zoom. We may have a lecture where the characters are present. We may have assessment items where the characters are present and the students have to unpack what is actually happening for them. We do videos and have them as part of demonstrations on particular skills. So there's a diverse way of putting this into curriculum. The other thing, in terms of when you're using MaskEd, we don't ever play that role where we basically come in as a character without giving students a level of warning or an indication that we're using MaskEd in this particular technique. However, as time goes on, I've had characters, for example, Stanley Selby was one of my favourite characters, and I just have to say to students, Stan's visiting today sometime, and that's all I needed. They knew They knew it was me, but they were so suspended in disbelief that they bought into the character. So getting back to it, variety of ways, Mel, face-to-face, individual sessions where you're also training others with their own characters. No one else can play my character. They'll have their own, virtually through Zoom, through Teams, or in your platforms such as whether you're using Milo, whether you're using Moodle or whatever, you can put those characters into your individual units.
And so thank you for that, because that multi-campus thing I was wondering about. How would you say this is different to hiring an SP or having an SP?
What a great question, Mel. When we hire an SP, we are not expecting those individuals to have the insight and knowledge of the content in which you are utilising the characters in. So, for example, I can go in and let's say I am teaching vital signs. I can play an SP where I'm just having my vital signs done. What separates, we're not expecting that SP to be able to say, now listen, I think the last nurse found the pulse right here, and when they were doing it, they were feeling for, what was it again? The rate, that's right, the rate, the rhythm, the regularity. When I'm doing the blood pressure, I don't expect an SP to be able to say, listen, the last nurse, when she was measuring or he was measuring for the cuff size, I think they said something around 60% of the width of the arm. That's right. And they've got two signs, the systolic and the diastolic. So all the way through, I'm giving prompts. Have you done your 5 moments of the hand hygiene? Whereas an SP is not expected to do that. So what these characters bring is this level of knowledge that they transfer through the character. And that knowledge is attuned specifically to the arena or the area of what the students are learning at that particular time. And don't forget the essence of communication. And nor do we expect an SP to peel off the mask at the end of that session and undergo a debrief. How did you feel? What do you think you did really well? What could we have done differently in dealing with this character? Let me ask that character how they felt when you were actually communicating with them. And then lastly, how are you going to take away what you've just experienced here into your real world of practice? That does not come from the dialogue of an SP. This comes from the dialogue of the Mask-Ed character. One of the biggest faults that people play with Mask-Ed is that they will don a silicon prop and they'll just become an SP. They don't use the true pedagogy of Mask-Ed where they are delivering that information in a timely way, attuned to what the learners are actually experiencing or what my key objectives are. Anybody can put on a silicon prop and be an SP. It's not the gift of what Mask-Ed offers.
Great. Thank you for that. That was really clear. So I understand in higher ed, prior to working in higher ed, I was in a healthcare hospital-based sim centre where your learners would come in for anywhere from like 2 to 8 hours, and then you might not see them again for 12 months. Is it appropriate for that kind of environment? How would you think about Mask-Ed in that environment?
Yeah, that's
where you're not having repeat exposure to the character.
Yeah, so one of the challenges of if you've ever donned silicon props, you can't stay in them for very long. It's a bit of a risk. So I always say, really probably 15-minute interactions with our students when we're donned. I'm a bit of a master at it, so I can stay in there for a fairly long period of time. I say to you, Mel, what type of simulation are you trying to achieve? If this is something that you want learners to respond to where there's a fair amount of emotion, vulnerability, where you want that communication to be a focus which you may not necessarily get from a mannequin. So my answer is, yes, you can do it on repeated episodes, but if it's staying in that one particular role for over 2 hours, 3 hours, you may find it too too challenging. There are times where we have gone and donned silicon prop, and let's say I'm using ALS and I'm talking about a sudden episode of a cardiac event. So I might come in the character and I say, look, I'm not feeling too good. I had a bit of ingestion last night and I've had this pain in my shoulder and I don't know what's going on. Oh, I don't feel very good. Gee, I think I got somebody standing on me blooming chest. Oh, dear. And then I might collapse. They then transfer over to the mannequin, and that then they can continue on that simulation and doing an ALS. But what I've brought in the beginning of this is a sense of realism into this particular scenario. So, there's many ways that you can do it. It's about being innovative and think, how can I draw in my learners to maximise the engagement while also understanding how long can I stay in a prop for?
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Jenny,
Jenny, do you have any questions?
Well, I'm really looking forward to meeting one of the characters,
Yes.
Kerry. So my question is for Jane, because Jane, I know that you use Mask-Ed. Can you tell us why you've chosen to use Mask-Ed? Why you've been? What do you think of the advantages?
What I might do, sorry, Jen, what I might do is I'll just disappear for 5 minutes, or not even 5 minutes, a minute, because that's all it'll take me, and you guys have a bit of a dialogue, because I know both Jenny and Jane have their own characters, and you might talk a little bit about that. I'll be back very shortly.
Okay. Sorry, Jenny, what was your question? Why I chose to use Mask-Ed?
Yeah, I know when I first saw Mask-Ed was in Newcastle, and I went, oh, wow, this is such a realistic, exciting, innovative style of simulation, and I could see the advantages of Mask-Ed over mannequins and SPs and role play and other types of simulation styles. I'm just interested, what do you see in Mask-Ed?
Well, like you, I was introduced to Mask-Ed by seeing Kerry and undertaking the training, and I chose to use Mask-Ed in a slightly different way and actually use it in a theory subject, where I was actually teaching about chronic illness, and what it allowed me to do was have an unfolding case study using Mask-Ed and my character Marjorie, who would pop in at 3 different points in time across the unit with different things that were happening, but all related to chronic illness, and it brought some life into what they were learning about. It actually brought home that there were people that were experiencing things rather than just learning about those chronic illness. Oh, I think someone else that's joined us today.
They're muted, so we just have to unmute.
Henry, is it?
The microphone.
Don't think we can hear.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
yes,
hello, Henry.
Yes, I don't know what I'm doing with all this technology stuff, That's one of the problems for people in my age group, Yes, who am I speaking with again? Sorry.
So my name's Jane.
Oh, all right, this is a P-cast thing, the cast of the pod or something like that? That's it, yes. I'm Henry. Yeah, Henry Wilson, and I've been working with Kerry, you see, and at the moment I've been working with the first year nursing students, you see. And one of the things they're learning about is vital signs. You know the vital signs? Yes, they're learning about that, and I also teaching them. Kerry's been teaching them about the fluid balance chart. Now, you see, My background is I was once a nurse educator too, you know. Yeah, one of the very first male nurse educators to be employed, in fact. Now, I've also got the gestion of the heart failure at the moment, you know, congestive heart failure. And me heart's not working so well as a pump. And I said to the nursing students the other day, you know, you got to measure everything that's going in and everything that's going out. And they couldn't understand how they worked the difference. I said, look, there's a negative and a positive. So, you know, if you got more coming in than going out, you're in a positive. I said, it's like a big fat juicy grape, you know? And if you got more going out than coming in, well, you're a bit dry, you're negative. That's like a sucked in sultana. And then they said, well, what's it got to do with your vital signs? I said, well, you think about it, darling. Take off the skin and think about what the heart might be doing when it's all full of fluid and overloaded, you know? I said, well, it might get a bit sluggish. I said, it's right. So, you know, you can see a difference in your heart. You know, so that's a sort of... I tried to explain everything for him, but I'm feeling a little sad. It's now 3 years since my wife passed. And I think sometimes I find it hard. It's her anniversary today, so I'm not feeling so fresh on today. But she was my rock, and she was also a nurse. God bless her. I met her in nursing many, many years ago, and yes. Anyway, she would have me in a proper suit and tie doing this interview, but I couldn't find it. I got half me jammers on at the bottom. And yeah, yeah, is there anything else you would like to know about me?
Henry, I'm curious. What do you see how the students react to you?
Well, I have sweeties. And I have sweeties in my pocket, and I always bring something nice for the students. Sometimes I bring the cakes. I'm not a very good cook, though. They're not like my wife is. So I think they like me very much. But they always say to me, Henry, you are... I said, thank you, my darlings, and you're going to be marvellous nurses. I'm never cross with them, and some of the learners struggle a little bit, so I always give them a few tips and help them get on their way. I do tell them they've got to wash their hands at 5 moments of the hand hygiene. They sometimes get upset with me. I know, Henry, you're telling us again. Yes. So no, I think they like me. They always send me birthday cards, and on my birthday they've even done a cake for me. Yeah, yeah. I
Amazing.
visit them regular, like you know.
And do you
Yeah.
give them
Any other?
feedback, Henry?
Pardon, darling.
Do you give them feedback at the end?
Oh my word! I always get Kerry to come back and give him some feedback. Would you like me to find Kerry now?
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you for
Yeah, well, I'll
coming.
just find Kerry now. So Kerry always talks about a debrief afterwards. So she just takes off, sends me away from it. So then, back we come. So then we might say to the learners, how did you feel about that experience? How did you feel about Henry? What do you think you did really well when you were talking with Henry or dealing with Henry? And when I've got, say, quite a few students in the classroom and there's only one Henry, I might tag them in and out. So Henry might say, can you come over here, darling, and do this? Or, well, I go, thank you very much. Over here, you, darling, come over here with your friend and help me do this. So you're tagging in and out. So students never know when they're not going to be dealing with Henry because it's Henry controlling that situation. So then we would say, what do you think you did really well? Is there anything we could have done differently? What do you think Henry was feeling? So I might come back as Henry's voice, not necessarily putting on my prop. And then what are the gifts Henry's given you here today that you might then take away and apply in your real world? So debrief happens after every single interaction. And often that debrief is as long as the actual simulation that's occurred. So always allow for that debrief. The other important part that we've recently identified from one of my PhD students is that we spend so much time debriefing the learners. What happens with the character? Now, when we build these characters, these have come from a variety of things. Patients whom we as educators have dealt with, maybe stories about our own family members or something that's really touched us or emotional. And we have to be careful of what's happened in the simulation, that how are we dealing with this as we unpeel and emotionally unpack the experience for ourselves. So this is a new area that is really coming to fore, and that's from one of my peers, as I say, Joe Rhodes, a PhD student who's looked at this whole thing. So we spend hours doing debriefs with actors in roles, yet we haven't always done this successfully with the Mask-Ed characters. So just to give you an example, I just spoke about Henry's wife dying 3 years ago. Now, I could remove myself 2 years ago from that experience, having just lost my husband. When I talk about that, there is a new level of emotion and feel that I have that sometimes is so real in that character that you're playing, that you need that debriefing and coming to terms with what's actually happened there in your own life to the character you're playing. So when we're designing our characters, I try to get educators not to bring too much of their personal self into the character, because of the risks that that brings inside the classroom space.
Thank you for sharing that, Kerry. That is just so true, and we're not very good at that yet in debriefing the debriefers, right? Yeah, I think that's an area of improvement. And I know, Alistair, in a previous episode, we touched on that, but I think that's worthy of a conversation in itself. So how we can support other educators and academics out there in that space.
Kerry, the other thing sorry, you go,
I
Donna.
think there's something for another podcast, debriefing the
Yeah,
educators.
it'd be good to
who
get your
play those
PhD
roles.
student on.
Yeah, I know someone that we might be able to talk to about that.
Yeah.
Hey, Kerry, I've been thinking, if you've got some of our classes now are getting quite big. If I've got 25 or maybe 30 students in the lab, sometimes I've got 16. I know that when I was working with you, that we were doing tag team simulation. So what are the combinations of, how else can we mix up Mask-Ed with other types of simulation styles? What else have you been doing? Because you've talked about Mask-Ed with assessments. What else is out there that's been happening?
And let me give you an example that I've recently done, is that I'm doing a very much an I do, we do, you do approach. So gradual release of responsibility model in the classroom space. So I'll go in as the academic, and I might be, and let's go back to simple old vital signs, not simple, complex, vital signs. In terms of, I might go in and I say, I do. So guys, gather round. Let's run through vital signs. What are we actually doing? Why are we doing it? What are we going to do? Blah, blah. So we bring the clinical reasoning cycle in it. So I do. Then we do. And so it's a we do is where I'm talking with the students. Now, guys, tell me again, what do I need to do at this point? Then so they are then ready for the you do. You go out and you go and practice this yourself. So it might be that they've done these vital signs in these first half of their session. Now we're going to bring this to the situation of a real person. So I think Stanley, or whoever is coming into the classroom, he hasn't been well today. So the students have all had a go at practicing. They bring now this in. Here's his symptoms. Here's his situation. You do the blood pressure. You guys come over and have a go at the pulse. And Stanley or the character will draw the students in. Don't forget my temperature. Yes. Now, can you write it all this down? So someone else is writing it down. Oh, and now the nurse educator's here. Would you give her a handover? So can you please tell the nurse what's going on? And don't forget to do that Isabah thing, you tell them who you are, what me situation is, what me... So bottom line is, we've brought one character in at the end of that session with a small scenario. We've allowed clinical reasoning. We've allowed them to apply the skills, but more importantly, they're making sense of what has happened in the context of a real situation. That can take 20 minutes. I might only be in character for 7 minutes, but those students walk out, oh my gosh. Another one that I've just had recently is, this was incredibly powerful. It took 5 minutes to create. This is no joke. And it was about one of our characters who's been admitted to a nursing home. One of the things that the students had to do is try and have an insight or an understanding in terms of a care plan that what might be happening for this particular character. I want you to think about communication. I want you to think about nutrition, pressure injuries, falls risk, etc., etc. The conversation was on a video. There's only the character, and he gets a phone call from his granddaughter, who is a student or a registered nurse. So here is the conversation. Oh, hello, my darling. No, I'm not feeling so good about being in this nurse home. No, I don't like the food. I'm not going to be eating it. Yes, I know me bells. I've been doing the number ones, the rabbit droppings. Yes, I know, darling. I haven't been drinking the water. Eh? No, I'm lonely. No, I'm not moving around. I can't get around proper like. I don't like walking here, eh? Yes, I know. I got the red sore on me bottom a little bit. They call that the pressure. Yeah. And so this whole conversation is just made up with this pretend registered nurse. But she's giving these students these prompts of information for them to think about. Oh my gosh, he's lonely. He's at risk of constipation. Nutrition is an issue for him, etc., etc. He's a falls risk. So they've seen this 5-minute video that they take away, and the emotion that the students feel because, oh my gosh, that could be my grandparent. Oh my gosh, this could be somebody that I know. So we've brought this level of emotion to this simulation that they walk away. And so I go back into the classroom as me. Are you Stanley? Yes, I am. So, the students may not have even met me in person, but they know who that character is. Yeah. So we always say to students, this is Mask-Ed. This is being played by Kerry Reid-Searl or whoever the character actually is. So there's no pretending, giving
It's
students a false
transparent.
impression that this is just something that we've made up and now you've shocked me. No, this is a pedagogy or approach in simulation that we're using. But as I say, when we're in the classroom and we peel off and they see me, oh, Kerry, can you go and get Stanley again? Oh, okay, I'll bring him back. So, yeah.
Well, I don't know, but I'm off to make a cake for Henry. I loved Henry. I'm going to feed him.
Okay. He likes banana cake.
Thank you so much, Kerry, for today. I think you've given us lots of information. It was fantastic to meet Henry today. And as Mel says, I think we're all thinking of Henry today and hoping that he's doing okay. You've given us lots of content for other podcasts as well. So I'm sure we'll be asking you back in character, or maybe we're asking Henry back to do another podcast. Maybe we can do that regularly. I think our listeners would like to hear from him again. So
yeah, we love Henry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.